Yay. So, welcome everybody to our brand new updated webinar, How to Say No Without Feeling Guilty, Mean, or Selfish. We're going to talk about some of the things you're going to learn tonight. The science behind why we feel guilty or mean for saying no. We're going to cover what we're afraid of when we want to say no and where we struggle the most with saying no to other people.
There are also some really unexpected ways that not saying no hurts us or the people in our lives. So we always think it's going to be something different, but they can hurt us. How to say a kind no in order to say yes to what we truly want. And then we're going to talk about case studies of what actually happens when we practice saying no.
That's right. And we're going to be on for a little over an hour, hour and a half. We are going to leave plenty of time for your questions and comments. Teresa and I are going to show you one of the most important boundaries that you're ever going to learn, how to say no without feeling bad about it. So we've already got some comments about how many of you struggle with this. And let's see, I'm going to read one of them. Julia says, I struggle with calling someone out when they make a rude comment to me, especially if someone I like, if it's someone I like that, and much of the time I miss the moment or I'm shocked into silence and don't even recognize until later that it was a rude or inappropriate comment. I love that. That is such an important thing. We often freeze and we don't know what to say, and boundaries really help you. And we're actually going to share some boundary scripts later on in the webinar. Teresa, you want to read another one?
How to say no, or how to stay not okay with being overly aggressive or even calling it out.
That was from Julia.
Nice. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And Donna says, no is a complete sentence. It sure is.
I do.
But we often then we go, no, but anyway, I'm sorry. So we're going to help you have no as a complete sentence, and yay scripts, says Donna. I love scripts. So for everyone who stays on until the end, you're going to get some special gifts, including our highly valuable Boundaries in Your Back Pocket. It's a downloaded cheat sheet for boundaries. So you always have a little tiny boundary ready in a pinch. So stick around till the end. We're going to talk about our course. You're going to get first dibs on that. It's called Boundaries for Beautiful Relationships. You're going to learn a ton, and you're going to get some free bonuses and some special coupons. We got lots of free stuff for you. Teresa and I have been teaching and practicing boundaries for decades, and we can't wait to share what we've learned with you. So are you ready for secret number 1? Are you ready? Let me know in the chat.
Give us a why if you're ready. Give me a why.
Yes.
Or a yes.
We got lots of yeses. Woohoo. I love the interaction. Secret number 1 is no matter how weak or fuzzy your boundaries were in the past, no matter how dysfunctional your relationships have been or your family, it is never too late to learn how to set healthy boundaries and improve every relationship in your life, especially the one that you have with yourself. So that is just the tip of the boundary iceberg. So we are going to learn about how to improve your ability to say no without feeling guilty, mean, or selfish. And I am going to start the slides. Here we go. All right. Can everybody see the slides? Yes?
Give us a why or a yes.
Okay. All right, Teresa.
Many of us are afraid to say no, and thank you for everything that you put in the chat already as well. And it's because we don't want to be perceived negatively. We don't want to be seen as bad or mean or harsh. It's so funny. I teach self-defense, and one of the worst things you can say, calling a woman selfish or a bitch, we'll bend over backwards to prove that we're not selfish, that we're not bitchy. But the difference is, that will cause us to hold back our true feelings. And then we do all those things. We bend over backwards, end up with a backache, and we end up feeling drained or resentful, angry. We get upset. So give me a why in the chat if that's ever been you. Let me know. Have you ever struggled to say no because you were afraid of how people would take it, or that you would be perceived as negative, and then you ended up exhausted, drained, overwhelmed, and upset? So let me know if that's you. Oh, lots of yeses, lots of whys. Thank you. Thank you.
And we also got a comment here from Karen, who said, I'm struggling with being a single parent to a teenager. God bless you, who wants attention late at night. He doesn't want to hang out with me earlier in the evening. He chooses to take a shower around 11 p.m. And after that, he wants to connect with me, which cuts into my sleep time. Ooh, we need some boundaries there. So Donna says, yes, but this is the OP's way of trying to control us. And Teresa, did you want to read Donna's comment?
Karen, the same situation happened to me. I chose to spend time with him even when I wanted to sleep, but the outcome was he calls me from college without prompting. Long-term win-win.
Yeah. So sometimes it's okay to say yes temporarily. I think that's what Donna's saying, and I would agree with that. What about you, Teresa? When there's sort of something you're saying yes to and no to at the same time?
So keep in mind what you're saying yes to. You're saying yes to connecting with your son. You can draw boundaries. Hey, buddy, I can talk to you and let's do that, for 10 minutes, or I will give you undivided attention for 15 minutes. Or, how about we talk on Mondays and Wednesdays, or see if there are ways to create a boundary and say yes to connection with him and yes to how that might look. And those are entirely up to you. And you get to set those places. And we can come up with some. We'll see if there are any other ideas that come up along the way. But you are saying yes to connection. And if that means you lose sleep, then you chose that. The more that we fight what we choose, the harder it gets in us. We create resistance.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But now we're gonna define what a boundary is, right, Teresa?
Yes, Sandy, that is exactly what we're going to do. So you might be asking yourself, what is a boundary? So my favorite definition is a bubble. So do you remember being a little kid and you had like a bubble, a safety bubble around you? And like in Dirty Dancing, there's like, this is my dance space, it's your dance space. That is what a boundary is. And the ways that we teach boundaries, it's a whole new way of teaching them. We're not teaching them externally. We're teaching them internally, because what's inside the bubble, it's you. So let's talk about that. Sandy, we'll talk about that in a minute. What's your favorite definition of a boundary?
I love the bubble, but I also really like the stanchion or the velvet rope. I love the idea of when you unhook that velvet rope, you let people in and you let people out. So you get to decide who comes in and who comes out. So let us know in the chat, like how these definitions are landing for you. The boundary bubble, the velvet rope. It sort of gives you that metaphor that you can wrap your head around. So
directly saying no. I'm sorry. Were you not done?
Nope. Go ahead.
So directly saying no and drawing a boundary isn't just about protecting yourself. And that's the way it's often been seen. We think of it as a wall. We think of it as a solid no, or a you can't, or a get away. And that is a different way of looking at boundaries, because that's all about what you keep out. So it's not just about just protecting yourself from what's on the other side. Boundaries are about letting other people know the real you. Because when we ask for what we want, people can it helps them understand who we are. I have a little rap that I like to use. I'm not a good rapper. I'm just going to tell you that right up front. Boundaries are what you will and what you won't, and what you do and what you don't. And the more honest you are about what works for you and what you prefer, the less you do things that you don't want to do. And the better that your relationships will be, because people can feel it when you say yes and you're like, oh, I don't want to. They feel that level of obligation. And it's all about confidence. I had a client and she got called out in her relationship. Her partner said, You always just agree. You always tell me what I want. You always, right? Never, you want to limit that in a conflict. But my client then felt like saying no meant she was saying no to love. So she said yes to everything her partner wanted. And the truth of the matter was her partner just wanted to know what she wanted. And so my client was like, oh my God, I just realized as a kid, I made up a belief that drawing a boundary, saying no, it meant no to love. But here's secret number 2. You ready for secret number 2? We think if we wait long enough, boundaries will set themselves. It's kind of like that freeze mentality, like, okay, well, it'll happen. Hopefully it'll happen. It'll happen sometime. They'll just go away. Stick around for this next part, and we'll give you 5 reasons why we don't say no, so you can start learning how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. We had a funny comment from Donna that a velvet rope is good, but some people are good with that, but then others need a moat with alligators.
I do love an alligator moat.
So yeah, we didn't say what a boundary was not. And boundaries really are not those walls and those harsh things. And sometimes you need a strong no, but sometimes, most of the time, it's kind, it's soft. It's not really that giant wall that we put up in the alligator moat. So why do we struggle to say no? Well, there's, don't worry if this is, we're telling you a lot of stuff. So don't worry if it's a lot of information to take in right now. We teach all of this and much more in our course, The Boundaries for Beautiful Relationships. And our mission is to help you set clear, kind boundaries and not feel guilty. So we'll tell you more about the course when we're done with most of this webinar. But the first reason we struggle to say no is the disease to please. Here we have a little people pleaser. Any people pleasers here? Type in the comments if you are a people pleaser. Type a little P for people pleaser or PP.
Who's the people pleaser? Where do people please that? We got a
P. We got a P. Give us a P. Sometimes
P.
Oh, we got a partial P.
Nice.
We're getting some P's.
Know when are your partial P's? Like, in which situation are you a pleaser?
Mind your P's and Q's. Was a P.
Oh, I have a P in recovery. We have a recovery P. Recovered people pleaser, recovering people pleaser. Love it.
So if you find yourself taking care of other people around you before you take care of yourself, or you avoid conflict, or you're always afraid of rejection, you're probably a people pleaser. And being a people pleaser leaves you feeling anxious, drained, and overwhelmed. Why do we become people pleasers? Well, growing up, you may not have had your emotional needs met, and you got praise and attention when you did something like get good grades or be quiet, keep your head down, be obedient. Anybody relate to any of those things? I would say that most of us grew up with parents who praised us for what we did and not who we were. And I had a client who grew up in a very chaotic, messy home. Her parents were neglectful. Her father was an alcoholic, and she didn't get her emotional needs met. And her parents actually used to leave her alone when she was like 8 years old. They would go out for the day, and she was so neglected, but she would clean the house when her parents left so that they would say, "You did a great job." And she actually repeated this kind of behavior in her romantic life. So Donna says, you took the boundaries class twice, probably need a few more times. Hey, look, boundaries is a never ending quest, and it's a never ending, right? So they're ever expanding, as Teresa said. So what's the second reason why we struggle to say no, Teresa?
Thanks, Sandy. So the second reason is that we're afraid that we're never going to get that invitation again. We're worried about scarcity. Like, no one will ever ask us. No one will ever offer to take us somewhere. They won't include me. We fear something better won't come along. We feel guilty, right? The scarcity is the idea that it's got to be this or nothing. Even if you get a work opportunity and you're like, well, I can't say no, or someone asks you out for coffee or dinner and you're like, well, I can't say no. It's that whole idea that we need whatever it is they're offering, and if we don't have it, then we'll never get it again. So that whole idea was something that I used to do, and I'd love to hear in the chat if you guys have any stories. I am a professional martial artist, and I taught self-defense classes for a lot of women and women's groups. And every single time anyone would ask me to teach, I would say yes. Well, first of all, because I think self-defense is super valuable, but I would fill my schedule. So I'm running a studio up till, most nights till 8 o'clock. On the days that I have off, I would be doing workshops. Why? Because I didn't know if they were going to ask me to do it again. I wanted to help the people. So I would teach self-defense all the flipping time if somebody asked me, just out of fear that maybe they wouldn't ask me again. So I've got to say yes. So I don't know if that is one of them for you. Give me a why in the chat if you found yourself not saying no because you were afraid you wouldn't get an invitation or a promotion or that opportunity again.
Oh, that shows up everywhere, dating, everywhere, that somebody is not going to ask us again. So we have that feeling of scarcity.
Yeah. So Sandy, what's the third reason?
Oh, well, the third reason, Teresa, thank you for asking, is FOMO, the fear of missing out. If we say no, we might miss out or we might disappoint somebody else. So an example of that in my own life is I used to say yes to every wedding invitation because I didn't want to disappoint a friend or a relative. And then I ended up going to these weddings and really hating them. I was just like, what am I doing here? So what helped me was I started picturing myself at the event. I would picture the length of the drive, the effort it would take to get there, finding time to get the gift, how many hours I would spend there, who would I know there? Do I have anybody I really want to talk to? Why am I going? Is it for me? Is it for them? And then I felt into my decision to say no, and I stopped feeling guilty or bad about my no. Anybody else have FOMO out there? Let us know in the chat. And Donna says, take away the one in a lifetime. Yes.
Yeah, the idea that there's just one chance, one shot, one person, one job opportunity, one thing in a lifetime, the once in a lifetime.
Yep.
So the fourth reason that we struggle to say no is fear. That's right. So I do a whole workshop on fears and common fears. And the biggest one that stops us here is that we live in communities, and we've grown up in communities, from the times that we were living in caves together. And the fear of being ostracized or kicked out of the community is real. Like, we are afraid that we will we won't be invited, we'll get kicked out. Even the fear of speaking up. We're afraid if we say no, that they won't like us. They won't let us come back, and they won't accept us. Posting the wrong thing on social media or saying the wrong thing to someone else makes us feel like we're going to be seen in a certain way, in a negative way. And it's like upsetting the status quo. And part of saying no does feel like it is potentially upsetting the status quo, because yes feels so easy. It feels so easy to say. And Sandy's going to talk more about that. So look at all the division we've had over the last few years, especially around politics, and people being incredibly triggered, people being very divisive. And the idea is that we don't always know how to say no. For me, oh my gosh, I have struggled leaving a conversation. I used to be much better at it. But anybody else ever get stuck in conversations where you want it to be done and you want to leave the conversation, but you're not clear what to do? I just saw a meme yesterday that was like, I want to get a sticker with hearts so I can just put a heart on somebody as I walk away from the conversation, just like I do in text, and I do it without rudeness.
I love that.
So, walking around with heart stickers like, yay, you, and I'm leaving this conversation. I used to get in these really awkward conversations because I would fear I wouldn't know how to say I was leaving them. So I practice exactly what we're going to teach you. Sandy and I have been doing this for decades, but we still practice it. Someone said they'd
Oh,
taken a
yeah,
course, they need to repeat it. We're still practicing it. We still share boundaries.
we
And
do. We do. We help each other with boundaries.
yep.
Oh man, I have had trouble leaving conversations. I think that's such a common issue. We've got a bunch of yeses here. And so let's talk about the fifth and final reason we struggle to say no. And that is we don't know our yeses. We override what we want to say yes to because no one ever asked us what's important to us. Nobody wanted to hear. Maybe we spoke up and we got fun of or we got dismissed. We can't have a no, a clear no, until we know our yeses. Anybody in the audience can relate to that and let us know. Like, I'm not sure what I'm saying yes to. I'm kind of fuzzy about that. Like, I feel like I want to say no, but I'm not sure. We got a why here. And some yeses. In fact, the ability to say no without second guessing or feeling bad is one of the biggest things we work on with our private clients. And guess what? If you are one of the first 10 to sign up for our course, Boundaries for Beautiful Relationships, and this is the first time we're actually opening it, you'll get a free session with either me or Teresa, and the value is $300 to talk about where you struggle with your boundaries, especially around saying no and yes to what you really want, or to have us help you script a really hard conversation that is boundaried. Is that something that you would find value in? Let us know in the chat whether you would find value in having a private conversation with me or Teresa to help you script your boundaries, to help you say no without feeling guilty or second guessing. Meryl would find value. Thank you, Meryl.
So let me ask you this. So we just talked about why we don't say no. Now we're going to talk about why we feel guilty, mean, or selfish. What I would like to know, of the three, which one do you tend? Do you feel guilty more often? Do you feel mean more often? Or do you feel selfish when you say no? So let us know in the chat, which one of those is actually more common for you? Mean, guilty, guilty. All right.
Got a lot of guilties. Got a mean.
Mean. I'm a selfish. I should be giving more means. A lot of these are awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. I love how interactive everybody is.
Guilty, then selfish, mean last.
Rudy, you're funny.
Well said, Rudy. Guilty, then selfish, then mean last.
She's got the whole smorgasbord.
Right? You've got a whole buffet of all three happening at different times. And it can also depend on who you're saying no to, right? So let's talk about the first reason that we feel bad is that we don't want, or we feel guilty, is that we don't want to be that person. We want to be the cool girl. We want to be chill. We want to be okay with it all. We want to be all like, it's all good. We are, or whatever version that is in your head. We have this version of ourselves or people who draw boundaries as harsh or mean or bitchy or selfish or self-absorbed. And the difference is that we want to avoid being that person. So any other people in here want to avoid being considered that person? That's why we feel guilty, mean, and selfish. I have a client who was dating a new guy, and she'd taken our course, and she was like, I want to set a boundary, but I'm super afraid, and I don't want to upset him because he's a really good guy. And so we walked through the conversations, and we talked to her about how she could use boundaries in a kind and approachable manner. Turned out the guy loved it. He loved it. And she was asking for what she wanted versus, I don't know, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? How do you want to, like, everybody. And this is someone who had taken the course, had not done a lot of boundaries work. And now when she sets boundaries in relationships, it lets her know who the other person is. And she was just amazed by the fact that he loved it. And there are people out there that will love your boundaries. Thank you, Donna. She says she's gotten so much better with boundaries and getting so much more respect.
Yay.
Excellent. And yes, CJ, teachers have to do all the things. Yes.
What you just shared, Teresa, it just reminded me of, I had a guy I went out with many years ago who just overgave. From the minute I met him, he brought me a huge gift on our first date. It was like, what? This is so over the top. And then he made me this big meal when I came to visit him. And then I said I liked what he made. So he went out and bought it and gave it to me to take home. He bought more of it. And it was just like, and I found myself really feeling like I haven't earned his giving. Like it was that overgiving that we often do. I hadn't yet earned it. And I just said, I respect you less when you overgive. And he was new to dating. And it was just like, you can see that the people who actually set limits, who take their time getting to know people, it just makes you respect them more. So let's go to the second reason we feel bad about saying no. And that is that we don't want to create drama, the drama llama. When we try not to create drama, we actually usually create more drama. One of my clients was in a situationship for about 3 months. She was afraid to say no to all of his last minute dates because she didn't want to create drama. What if he stopped calling her? What if he got angry? What she didn't realize was that saying no to being a last minute option would actually create less drama. She would have clarity as to whether he would commit to honoring and respecting her more or not. And then clarity will give you peace of mind. We're so afraid to ask the questions, but we really need to know.
Oh, Julia. She says, I'm not clear on feeling mean, guilty, or selfish, as I don't feel any of those. I feel fear that they won't like me or include me or reject me. So what is the third and biggest reason we feel badly? We don't want to be left out or rejected. Thank you, Julia. It was almost like she was like reading my mind.
Yeah.
We have a coping mechanism against being left out. I don't know if you've ever heard of Abraham Maslow, but he developed a hierarchy of need, and the need for connection is hardwired in all of us. We have to feel connected in some way, shape, or form. And oftentimes setting a boundary or saying no can bring up that fear that we won't be connected, that we will be rejected. And it can trigger our fear of abandonment. We don't want to hurt others' feelings. We don't want to make them feel bad. And we don't want to feel bad. So if you struggle, if you feel like being honest and if you struggle with fear of abandonment or being left out or rejected, and that's one of the reasons that you don't set a boundary or say no, please feel free to type a nice yes in there, a Y in the chat. Because once we acknowledge that we have that fear, then we can actually start to do something with it. Then we can actually start to bring it to light. For example, we assume that saying no will get us abandoned. So let's say that you're dating someone and you say no to sex, you're afraid that they'll never ask or they'll break up with you, or they won't want to see you. Or if a friend calls you for a last minute opportunity, a last minute date or dinner, we feel like saying no is going to get us rejected or left out. Or work, if we are offered something at work and we say no, we're afraid we won't be offered more work. Many of us, not everybody. And we don't all fit into each of these. Boundaries are very specific. Thank you. Legend said, I'm okay with rejection and being left out. That is awesome. I don't have FOMO. So we are all different. We are all created like the unique thumbprint that we have. So what is the opposite of saying no? Well, that's coming up next.
What is the opposite of saying no? It is the auto yes. What is the auto yes? Well, somebody asks us for a favor and we're like on autopilot with our yes. Oh, yes, of course I will. I'll help you with that. I'll do that. We have this drive to please other people. Anybody here guilty of auto yes before you've actually thought it out? Oh my God, I have so many auto yes stories in my past before I started setting boundaries. We have a Y here from Donna. Anybody else have auto yes and just ends up saying yes to things? And then sometimes you go back, you go, wait, I want to say no. What do I do now? We have some more yeses. And Donna says, I'd rather stay home and watch Netflix than let someone disrespect me by inviting me at the last minute. That's a good boundary. So why do we do this? Because we don't pause. We don't take a pause to consider what we want and whether it's going to work for us. We feel like we have to respond right away.
The difference is that I remember that, and I still have to catch myself doing that. So if someone would ask me, can you meet? The first thing I would do is check my calendar. And if I had time, then I felt like I was supposed to say yes. And I didn't even think about, do I want to say yes? Is that something I want to do? My only limiter was, do I have time in my schedule? And being able to fit everything in started getting really unwieldy. Now I will start asking, like, is this something I want to do? And I'll use one of our boundary scripts to kind of think about it before I do an automatic yes. So what do you do if you're someone who says yes? Can I ask you a question? Yes. Can you do me a favor? Yes. If you're an automatic yes. So what do you do if that's who you are?
Mhm. Well, it's a good question. This is what you do. You establish your yeses so you can say no without guilt. We're going to share 4 important boundaries to help you figure out what you want to say yes to so you can say no without guilt or being mean or any of the other selfish things that we talked about. We have a couple more comments here.
Dawn, I love that. She says, I'll check my calendar. I say, I'll check my calendar and get back with you.
Excellent
Beautiful.
boundary.
Boundary script.
Yes, I feel like I must respond as soon as possible, says CJ. Others do not respond that quick. Yes. And Patty is getting good, saying not good for me, getting good at that. Excellent.
That's not good for me.
All right. So what are we saying yes to?
Yes to a boundary around your time. There are very few resources that once they're gone, you get back. Time and energy are 2 of those most important resources. So what does a time boundary look like? It might mean not picking up your phone, not checking social media, trying not to get distracted, or feeling like you have to be constantly available 24/7 on email or text. And it's funny because I have that same, CJ, I have that same tension. If someone texts me, I have a tension feeling that I need to respond right away. And I recognize it and I breathe through it. And then sometimes if I distract myself, I know I don't have to, but it is an automatic like tension that I have to respond really quickly. Does anyone else have that feeling? The other one that I have found fascinating is if you're a mom or a parent, I have seen people, women or people have to have their phone around them 24/7 and they're always on. And did you know that when your notifications go off, if there is a noise to it, it spikes your cortisol 75% just in that second, Now think about how many times your notifications are going off. And I've got clients who are like, I need to be accessible for my kids in case there's an emergency, but there's never been an emergency. And if you put your phone down for 30 minutes or gave yourself a phone break for 15 minutes, nothing like that you couldn't deal with until then would probably happen, right? So time boundaries around your own time, your own mental time.
Such a good one. The next one is a yes to a boundary around social media. There are a few ways this shows up in our lives. First, when we scroll endlessly, we go down that rabbit hole and we realize that we've spent an hour or 2 hours watching stupid cat videos, right? You feel drained, right? Or when to accept invitations to connect on social media. In dating, oh man, this comes up all the time. I remember I once dated a guy. I had just met him on the site and he wanted to friend me on Facebook after our first phone call. And I sent him a very clear text. Thank you, but I keep social media separate from my dating life. It's one of my boundaries. I hope you understand. I said no because I knew my yes around social media and dating.
I did that recently, as a matter of fact. And I'm really glad I did because this gentleman figured out we had friends in common. And I was like, oh, wait. So say yes. What else can you say yes to? Yes to boundaries around your lifestyle. What foods do you like to eat and when do you like to eat them? When do you like to go to bed? And when do you, and I'm thinking about the question earlier about, well, 11 o'clock is sleep time. And so that's a tougher boundary to set. But what kinds of things do you like to do? How much alone time do you want or do you need? How do you operate best? That is a boundary to say yes to. Things that someone else had said, not accepting last minute invitations. That is a yes boundary to your lifestyle. That doesn't work for me. How do you operate best? And how you don't work best. So I shut off my phone most nights by 9 o'clock so that I can calm my brain down and get to bed sometime in the 10 o'clock hour. And I'm pretty clear about that. If I have friends or people I work with, or I'm dating someone, then I let them know my phone is usually turned off. So that's me taking care of myself, or the kinds of foods you ask for, or the kind of lifestyle that you want to lead. Those are the things to say yes to.
Yeah. And by the way, in our boundary course, we have an operating manual that will help you identify all the things in your lifestyle that you say yes to. So that's part of the course. And another thing you say yes to, boundaries around work. And some examples of that are client agreements to only email back during certain hours. I allow clients to email me anytime they want, but I tell them very clearly that I will only email back during my work hours during the week. And if they email me on the weekends, I will send them an email on the first business day. It's very clear. I also do not work on weekends. So if you want to reserve your weekends for family time, for private time, for quiet time, yes to vacation, so you're not drained at work, all of those things are boundaries. Being able, I was just telling Teresa before we started, I'm booking a trip to Israel, and I usually work while I'm away visiting my daughter there. That means that I'm with my daughter all day with her kids, and then I work from 4 p.m. on. And this time I'm going to take 2 weeks off. So if you're one of my clients, you're the first to know. I don't know what I'm going yet, but it's just to give me the space and to have me be more present for my daughter and my grandkids.
So important. So how do we define our yeses? Well, we're going to give you 5 important tips to walk away from. First is knowing your needs. Know yourself. Know your needs. Know what works and what doesn't work for you, and being okay asking for that. Be familiar with what makes you feel good. So it might be conversations with people. Sandy is saying, I used to work at, 4 o'clock at night until 2 a.m. In Israel. Well, that feels uncomfortable. So once you start learning what feels comfortable and uncomfortable, then you can start to define what is a yes for you. Also learning how to understand your adrenaline system, especially when you are in something triggers you. So I'm an adrenal stress, I'm a self-defense instructor, and I also teach adrenaline stress training. And being in that adrenal response is not good for our systems. And learning how your system gets triggered and what upsets you or what sets you off, that once you figure that out, like, oh, a conversation like that really triggers me. I need to do these 4 steps ahead of time. Being able to understand how you work and what gets you into fight, flight, or freeze will help you say yes to the right things. And the 5th one is my little rap song: what you will and what you will and what you won't, what you do and what you don't.
That's
Remember,
right.
it's okay to say, I'm not that, that doesn't work for me. I'm not that. And we're actually going to give you some scripts.
Awesome. Well, who here is guilty of saying yes when you mean no? And who wants to know how to say no and end the auto yes? So let us know in the comments if you would like a solution. We've been talking about the problem, and now we're talking about the solution. This is a really, really important part. We've got some yes, please. Got some yeses coming in. All right. Well, the first thing is you don't owe anyone an immediate response. So when someone asks something of you, stop and take a pause. Just take a breath. And doing that pause creates space so you can process what works for you instead of responding to what works for them. Because really, when we're making that auto yes, we're really considering their needs instead of our needs. And sometimes there will be a yes, but a lot of the times it's going to be a no. So,
I want to give a shout out. There's a fight, flight, or freeze. You guys have heard about. I'm sure you've heard of it before. But that freeze was the first one that our brains created, that our brains developed. Because if something was shaking in the bushes, we needed to freeze to decide: do I fight or do I run? So that freeze is that pause. It gives you that chance to breathe into it. The second response that we developed was to run if there was danger, but you have to freeze to figure out, am I in danger or am I not? So freezing is that pause. And there are some easy ways and some easy language to help interrupt the behavior of the auto yes. So we've got some scripts. Actually, someone had already mentioned this. I need to check with my blank. I need to get back to you on that, but thank you for asking. And I added
think I might have skipped one here.
I don't know. We'll see.
Let's see.
You know what one of my new favorites
Ah.
is? Wow, I am knee deep in a project right now. I'm knee deep in a launch right now. Like
Mhm.
now is not a good time. And because everybody says I'm busy. And being able to say I'm busy doesn't necessarily mean anything. So I'll always add something. So thank you. I'll check my calendar, get back to you. Oh, I need to sleep on that. Let me get back to you tomorrow. And
Yeah,
then one
be
I added
safe.
is I'm knee deep in a project. I'm knee deep in a thing.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. When I get asked to be on someone's podcast or take part in a summit, and I get a lot of invitations, and I'm launching a course. This is not a good time for me, but thank you so much. Please keep me in mind for next year. So again, it doesn't have to be a harsh no. It's thank you, kindness. And sometimes it can be, I can't do this, but I can do that. So how do you like these boundary scripts? And we'll just review them for a minute. These, thank you. I have to check my calendar, get back to you. I need to sleep on it. I need to check with my spouse, my sister, my boss. And I need to get back to you on that, but thank you for asking. So you guys, we told you that we are going to give you some more boundary scripts, and this is going to be a free gift for you. I'm going to put it in the chat right now. You can click on that. And this is one of our free gifts. And if you click on it, you can have a copy of it and save it for later. If not, it's going to be in the email tomorrow with the replay of the webinar. So don't worry about that. And yeah, so how do you guys like these scripts? Who likes to have scripts in their back pockets?
So, and let's talk about that for a second. When our brain goes into fight, flight, or freeze, or we're in fear, it's really hard to create on the fly. And so you might end up with a, I don't, or you might do auto yeses. So what we're giving you is that chance to just fall back on one. You don't have to use them all, but fall back on one. Find one that you like and let us know. And then maybe you start using a different one. Let us know what that one is. But having a script means you have a predetermined something that you will do. It's like a framework. Oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yay.
good. Lots of you guys are really liking these. Love them. I do. Thanks for these. Love the idea of scripts. Great. Yay.
Woo!
For scripts. Why for scripts? Yay.
And our course has so many scripts, and we help you script out hard conversations. That's one of the most important things. I think just too few of us have language around how to set boundaries, how to speak up. We also talk about how to speak up in our course, because when we define what's important to us, we can do all these things. And Legend says they should be printed on t-shirts. Yes. All right. Well, we have some final tips for you.
All right. First three, define your yeses so you know your nos. Figure out what is important to you. Start setting firm and simple boundaries with a graceful or neutral tone. You don't have to be harsh. You don't have to be like, no, how could you ask me that? What were you thinking? Who does that? You can do a lot of different things. But the last part, I think one of these three is process before having a difficult or a scary conversation. So just like we're talking about all of these different pieces with you, these are part of the process. So we are trying to prevent any anger or upset because you can vent with a friend, you can vent with a coach, you can vent with a therapist, but being able to vent what you want to say with someone who knows how to help you set boundaries allows you not to go off, not to go get up and say an auto yes, or do something you don't want to do and regret later. You can do those before having that conversation.
Mhm. And another tip is no means no. We tend to over explain. And I love this breakup text. It's a breakup conversation that was just posted in my Facebook group where the woman knew exactly what she wanted to say. She didn't want any bargaining. And so she just said, this is over. Here is why. It's no, we're not negotiating. And so if you have a no, you need to stick to your no and avoid being defensive. We tend to often not get to the point we get defensive about, well, you're not respecting my no. You just have to stick with it and do it with dignity. And the final tip is it's okay if somebody doesn't like your no. Not everybody's going to agree with your no. In fact, when we first start setting boundaries, people are like, who kidnapped you and put someone else in your place? Because it feels like you're a different person. You're the person who always said yes. Why are you saying no? So it's okay if somebody doesn't like it, especially in the beginning.
I know that we make this sound simple, but don't be fooled. Simple and easy are not the same things. We're saying, hey, use a script. Well, it's easy to say, but have it prepared. Know what you're going to say ahead of time. So let me ask what you've learned so far. What if you give someone a clear no and they continue to ask? Well, that would be somebody that we call a boundary pusher. That is someone who's not respecting your boundary. And at that point, it might behoove you to start setting harder or stronger boundaries. Sandy, what would you say about that?
Yeah, definitely boundary pusher. I think we have to just push back and just say, I said no. What part of no did you not understand? I have used the words, I'm not feeling heard, I'm not feeling respected. So, I would ask them for reflection. That's the moat with alligators. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Start bringing in the moat if you need to. So the other part about that is that think about a toddler. A toddler is going to keep going. Can I have it? 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 No, 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 no. So you're just going to keep saying no, and your no might shift. So let us know if there's anything else that you've learned so far. Share with us in the chat. Really curious. Would love to know. So we've been talking for a while now, and we've gone through a ton of information. We can't teach you everything about boundaries in one webinar. If you're interested in letting us talk about more, let us know in the chat, because we have a program, Boundaries for Beautiful Relationships, that we would love to talk to you about. And it will teach you how to master everything that we've shared today and so much more. So are you okay with us sharing more about how this program works? Give us a why. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. And no, Donna, we aren't responsible for other people's feelings. If we were, you should give them a pony. Or you're not responsible for other people's feelings. If you were, you'd be pizza. Yes, thank you. Thank you all. So Sandy, you want to tell us about the program?
I do. I love all the whys we got here.
Thank
you. So before I tell you about our program, Boundaries for Beautiful Relationships, I wanted to let you know that just like you, Teresa and I struggled with our no's. We used to volunteer, we couldn't say no to volunteer requests, or overworking at our jobs, or overgiving, overdoing, and to sheer exhaustion. We weren't able to show up authentically and powerfully in our own lives. And we wanted to live lives that were purposeful, with relationships that were meaningful. We wanted to be at peace with all of our choices, and we wanted all of our relationships to be filled with mutual respect. But honestly, it was a struggle till we learned the power in a solid no, and then we began practicing it every single day. So we're going to talk about the program.
So how many of you are clear on your yeses and your nos? How many of you struggle with setting boundaries? have you had negative results in your life from not setting boundaries? Negative results like people being upset, or you're angry, upset, exhausted, resentful. And also on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you see that it's something that you're ready to do? Really, truly ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, is this something that you are ready to solve? Is this something you're willing to learn more about? And let me ask you something else. If this program, all it did was help you stop saying yes when you meant no, would that be worth it? If you could express yourself with confidence and clarity, if you could define for yourself what works and what doesn't work, would that be worth it in your life right now? And yes, Donna, negative from not being so painful. It's painful to set boundaries. It is hard the first time. So imagine a life where you did set boundaries. You felt worth it. You felt respected. You felt heard. You felt clear. Other people in your life knew who you were. They knew what to expect from you. They knew what time you went to bed. They knew what you like to eat. Imagine what that feels like. Imagine that in your life. Thank you. Yes. Wonderful.
Get lots of yeses.
Good.
Boundaries is a practice, as we've said, and it's so easy to take a webinar, go home and say, well, I learned a little script and I'm going to practice it. And then what? So it's really a practice that we have to do a lot. And there's a lot more to it than just watching a webinar or listening to a podcast. We designed Boundaries for Beautiful Relationships for people like you who want to be able to trust themselves, to always know how to follow their own inner compass and stay true to themselves and with boundaries. And I'm going to put the link to the course here. You're the first to learn about it opening up again. This is the 3rd or 4th time we've teaching it, and we've added a lot of wonderful things. What's different about this course is that it's small. A lot of courses that are taught out there have hundreds of people. You don't get live interaction. We have live sessions every single week for 8 weeks. You get modules, you get to learn on your own, and then you come together and ask us questions. You have a private forum. We're going to tell you lots of things in a minute, but we want to first share a few success stories from our course members. Can we share a couple with you? Give us a why if you'd like to hear some great stories of things that happened for other people. Get some whys. Thank you, ladies. So we have one from a woman named Elle. She said, I can't thank you enough. I was so stressed out. Having a tough conversation with my boyfriend almost made me want to avoid it altogether. But through your training, I knew I had to talk about what was bothering me. I'm so glad I did, because it turned out better than I ever could have expected. And this is so common. Anybody relate to this, trying to avoid a conversation that they're supposed to have?
God, or the spinning, the head spinning, the anxiety, you're thinking overnight, how am I going to say it? So Sarah told us that she had no idea learning boundaries was as important as they are. She had no idea. After taking your training, I realized how many of the issues in my past relationships were because I didn't know how to speak up for myself. And I thought being kind meant being a doormat. You've shown me the light. Now I'm dating a great man who not only respects what I want, he asks me if I'm getting my needs met. I had no idea that was possible. And what would you do if you had to have that tough conversation? Would you spin about it? Would you talk to every one of your girlfriends first and try to get their opinion on how to deal with something difficult? And the course for both Elle and Sarah was, it was pretty amazing. It was pretty impactful. Help with gaslighters. Yes, gaslighting is tough.
Gaslighting was actually the word of the year last year. Did you know that? I just found that out. I was interviewing a therapist for my podcast, and he said gaslight was the word of the year, and he wrote an article about it. Yeah, there are a lot of people who gaslight, and a lot of this is just learning how to recognize the gaslighters from the start so that you're not falling into the trap. We have a whole section on boundary traps, and that is definitely one of them. And Legend also said, I had to walk away from some situations regarding honoring my boundaries. Sometimes boundaries have consequences. Boundaries can have consequences, and it tells you who's there for you and who's not, right? So a lot of times when we set those boundaries and we have people walk away, it might hurt or sting in the beginning, but in the end, it's the best for us. And yeah, Teresa has a lovely comment here. Here's another testimonial. This woman, Kathy, said, during a trip back home to my family, I was highly in touch with my emotions and the feelings in my body. I was able to take care of myself when I felt anxious. I was also able to bounce my self-esteem back when it was falling down. It was a good trip thanks to your course. I totally can relate to family stuff. Who can relate to having families that don't honor boundaries, or friends who don't honor boundaries? And also really understanding and feeling into your emotions and into your body. How many of us really can name our emotions? Donna says, family is the hardest. It is so hard, but it's a great place to practice.
Oh, yeah.
And we get plenty of opportunities, right? Did you want to do the next one, Teresa?
Sure. Natalie said, I realize I'm such a terrible overgiver, especially with family, friends, and partners. Setting boundaries feels empowering. I'm learning how to apply them to all my relationships. And I guess I'd ask you that. Are you an overgiver? Do we have people pleasers? We saw a lot of P's in the comment section, but are you also an overgiver? And do you know how to calm yourself down when you are with difficult people? Do you know how to calm yourself down when you are with challenging people? And can you imagine that there is actually an 8-week course that helps you shift these long standing behaviors? It takes a hot minute because some of the behaviors that each of us do naturally has been there for years, since we were toddlers, since we created that this is what we need to do to be safe. This is how we need to exist in the world. And so in our course, it's 8 weeks filled with step-by-step boundary training. You can read it here. Checklists, we give you lots of scripts, exercises, an assessment, and we do live Q&A and live coaching each week. There's also audio and video parts for each unit. And we have a private group forum, because I will tell you this, when you start setting boundaries, it's not like the other people in your relationship go, good for you. Yes, that's totally a boundary. Now, if you're friends with Sandy and I, when someone sets a boundary, we're like, yeah. But the rest of the people in your life aren't used to you setting boundaries. So it's great to have a community. It's great to have a group where all of us support and honor and celebrate each of your boundary shifts.
Mm-hmm. And we'll address what you said, Donna, in a minute. Wouldn't you love to just leave toxic relationships and recognize and tame those nasty triggers? We often don't even know that we're being triggered. We don't know how to manage those triggers that come from way long ago. We also teach you how to identify and express all those important feelings and needs. So few of us even know what's going on inside of us. We also help you deal with boundary breaches, those people who push back on our boundaries, and boundary kryptonite. Those are the things that are weak areas. And you get to live life on your own terms. So that is the best feeling. And we're going to just walk you through a few of the bonuses, and then we're going to open for some more questions.
And Donna, we will answer yours too. First bonus is, how can you help clear out what doesn't serve you anymore? Well, we have a guided meditation that you can listen to over and over that will help you clear out any of those old patterns, those negative belief structures, any of the energy that gets stuck in your system, in your chakras, in your body. We can help you. We can help you access that higher self, that highest part of yourself.
And we have a, whoops.
Nope.
What's going on? We're
No, it's
bonus
that one. It's
one
just, it's numbered incorrectly.
went to
It's okay.
bonus three.
We
All
are
right, we'll
human
teach you.
people. We are human.
We're going to teach you how to count. Bonus number three, bonus number two is your boundary journal. The boundary journal is just so many wonderful boundary prompts to help you as you're beginning to set boundaries. And it's really a wonderful tool. And what's the next one?
We have the online group. So we will meet and other people will ask questions. We will be able to celebrate and share your wins. Share how you needed to set a boundary. You might even vent so you can prevent upset in the group. And that's a very valuable resource as well.
Mm-hmm. And we have another bonus. The first 10 to sign up, and you guys are getting the first dibs on this, is a free half-hour boundary strategy call with Teresa or me. And these are only for the first 10 to sign up. So these are going to go fast. And we also have a coupon for everyone who's on this call to get $100 off the full pay. And that is at checkout for the full pay, you enter BBR 100, and that will get you $100 off. And now we're going to open up for questions.
I would like to address Donna's question first,
Mhm.
if you're cool with that. Will we ever get to not feeling uncomfortable when we set boundaries? So there's always a level. And right now you might get to an anxiety level, high anxiety level when you have to set a boundary. So think of it like a 9 or a 10. It might freak you out. When you start to practice it and you learn how to calm your system, Sandy and I will both still get mildly uncomfortable or we'll get pissed off, right? Like, we're human beings, but it doesn't last very long. We know how to do something about it. And so the feeling, the discomfort drops dramatically and we know how to deal with it. And so it's almost like the discomfort is part of not having a solution and not knowing what to do. But when you have a framework, when you know what to do, it feels so much better.
Yeah. Yeah, I started with my family many, many years ago. My father and mother were getting divorced when I was getting married, and my father would call and just vent about how horrible my mother was. It was terrible. It made me feel terrible. I didn't even know what boundaries were, but I knew I did not want to listen to him doing that. And so I said, if you keep talking about mom, I'm going to hang up the phone. And I hung up the phone. And then he called back and he was angry. And I hung up the phone again and again. And over time, look, I felt bad in the beginning. I felt like guilty. I was not honoring my parent, but I had to honor myself. And I knew it deep down in my gut. And so the more we practice this, and I've done it with my mom, with her putting me on hold every time I'd call her. And I'd say, you know what, when I call you, I'd really appreciate if you would let phone calls go to voicemail. So it's we can set boundaries with people who are really difficult in our lives. We can set boundaries with people who are not difficult in our lives, the people that we're in relationship with who really want to negotiate with us. So it is possible.
And please let us know in the chat if you have any other questions. Sandy mentioned that we both have worked on boundaries for a long time. I really feel like I wish that people were teaching kids boundaries. And it's funny because toddlers learn boundaries. Anybody had a child at the terrible twos when it's like, no, no, no. And that then we, kind of teach the kids that, no, you can't be that way. But really being able to say no is also what you want to say yes to. And it is inherent. If you've ever seen animals, like a mama bear is my favorite example of something that an animal that has great boundaries. If you encroach on her cubs, she will growl at you. She will get upset with you. She will let you know that you have crossed her boundaries. And it's hardwired in us. And we have a boundary breach whenever we are starting to feel triggered or upset. It means we've got to deal with something. And each of our systems, it tells us that in a different way.
Yep. I I was just thinking about while you were talking, Teresa, that we don't learn how to self-soothe as children, that in that learning to say no and learning to set boundaries when we're young helps us to become adults who can self-soothe. And that's really about the pause, that ability to just say, what's going on for me? And so many of us just so attuned to everybody else. We are so enmeshed with people, and we don't know how to trust our own boundaries, to trust our own GPS. It's an inner compass.
And to Donna's question, the reason I have so much trouble with boundaries is mine were mowed down as a child. There's a challenge when we have learned helplessness, like when you learn that your words, your power, your boundaries are not enough, then you stop trying to set them and you just sort of give up, and you do it out of survival. Well, all of us do. All of us do. Most of the patterns that are inherent in our systems are done out of survival. They're done out of a good thing. But being able to have the knowledge now that you can make a difference, that yes, as a child, my family had horrible boundaries. I had to have strong boundaries because I had a very negative, angry, verbally and emotionally abusive father. And I would set boundaries to protect my mom and my brother. But I still had to learn how to do it with friends. So most of us didn't grow up in households where our boundaries were honored and we were taught how to do this correctly. And being a child where your boundaries are ignored, it's really hard to start asking for what you want.
Yeah, that's so true. I remember when my mother started to really get it, and she even said to my sister, you should check with your daughter and see if it's a good time to talk. I mean, coming from my mother who never checked in with me and gave me unsolicited advice my entire life, by doing this over and over and over again and really sticking to the boundaries, she's shifting, she's changing, and she's 91. So it is never too late to learn boundaries, everybody. We have a social experiment here from
Nice.
Legend. Saying no to everything, even when I wanted to say yes to certain things for 7 days. You learned a lot about yourself. Cool.
That's awesome.
I would love to hear more about that social experiment. Well, thank you, Anne. I'm so glad you learned heaps today. Yeah, we'd love to hear what you learned. If people can just write in the chat, what are some of the big takeaways that you're taking away from the webinar? And how many of you are going to join us and be some of the first 10 to join and get some of those special bonuses? Let us know. I would love to hear what you learned. Oh, in her experiment. Yeah.
And the no. And you've always, I think there was a movie, right, where Jim Carrey had said yes to everything.
Oh, yes.
Yes, man. And so the idea that there is a no man or no woman or no person, yes. That's outstanding.
Yeah. So the course starts, that's a good question, Rudy. We didn't talk about that. The course starts a week from today. The first module will drop Sunday night. The registration ends Saturday night at midnight. And the live sessions are Wednesdays at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, 5 Mountain Time, 6 Central Time. I'm trying to get all the times in the United States, and I have no idea in New Zealand and Australia. The next day at some point during the day. But all of them will be recorded, and everything is on the page that we put in there, the link to the page. Yes, thank you, Teresa. So yeah, we're just, you will get your modules and you'll be able to do the homework and be prepared and have all the questions you have for us on the days of our live sessions. What is the investment? There are 2 ways to pay. I have to check. Teresa, do you know offhand?
I do.
What
so if you want to pay in full, it's $9.97, and we've offered you $100 coupon. That's good for the next 4 days. And there is a way of paying 3, if you want to break it into 3 payments, of $375.
Right. You only get the $100 off the full pay.
Anne says that she learned how to identify my yes. Not in a position to do the course. Sounds wonderful. Stick around. We offer this course. We haven't offered it for a couple of years, 3 years, I think.
Yes.
But we also have Boundary University, www.boundaryuniversity.com, where there are single courses. So you can purchase one course at a time. I'll go ahead or Sandy, if you want to enter that. And it's more of a DIY. There's no live or group coaching, but there's curriculum, there's training, there are options. There's 10 different courses on boundaryuniversity.com. Feel free to check that out if the course isn't something you could do at this time. But the course itself is really, it's an 8-week deep dive into shifting things and making things different for you.
Yeah,
Thank
this is all one course at a time, or you could buy a few courses on Boundary University, but you don't get the live interaction, which is really, to me, the most invaluable thing. I mean, when I work with clients who have listened to podcasts and read the books and done all the audio files, and it's the level of work that you do when you're with a trainer is so, you can't even compare it. You know, I just spoke to somebody today who just hired a therapist because she said, I tried to do all these things on my own and I couldn't do it. Well, this is like therapy and coaching and everything all in one. And just imagine what the investment for therapy and coaching would have been. Certainly not as low as this for 8 sessions.
Truth. The other thing is knowledge in information is 20%. So really practice and practical application, that 80% is what we see in studies, neuroscience studies on how to create behavioral shifts. So you can listen to all the information and learn it, and being able to actually practically apply it, which is what we do, because everybody's boundary situations are different. We can give you a framework. We can help you understand yourself differently, but we all have different situations, unique situations. So the practical application piece and the practice piece, that is what does it. That is what makes you a boundary, what we call boundary ninja. Starts turning you into a boundary ninja.
Yes.
Which, by the way, boundary ninja means that you can set boundaries and people didn't even know you set a boundary. It's so smooth. You're like, they just gave you a choice. It's the oddest, it's the coolest thing when you start being able to set a boundary and somebody doesn't even know you did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I set a boundary with my son this week, and it's interesting because the same boundary came up with my daughter talking about her father. So the boundary was, my son and I were walking and my son took a call from his father. And usually he'll let the phone go to voicemail, or he'll just say, everything okay? I'll call you back. But this time he stayed a little longer. And I said, when he hung up, I said, can I ask you a favor? Would you be willing to let calls go to voicemail while we're out for a walk together? And he got defensive. He said, I don't agree with you. I never take long phone calls. I just wanted to make sure Dad was okay. And I said, Dad's always okay. He calls you like 100 times a day. And I said, and then we were at this for about a half an hour until he finally heard me. And I had to keep saying, I don't feel heard. I don't feel heard. You don't have to agree with me. I want to know that you hear me. And at the end, he told me, I hear you. Are we good? We were good. And we've been on a few walks since then, and the phone calls have come in and they've all gone to voicemail.
Yeah.
And I give him props every time he does it. And today my daughter said, you know, when I'm watching a movie with Dad, he keeps taking calls from his girlfriend. It's driving me crazy. And then he'll put the movie on pause. And I'm like, that sounds like it's a call for a boundary. So, yeah, it is. It's just so important to have the skills, because she's like, Dad, put the phone down. Tell your girlfriend not to call. That's not a boundary. That's a demand.
Definitely a demand. I went on vacation with my mother in last December, and I knew I was going to have to set boundaries early and often. And my mom is a worrier, and I don't know if any of you have parents or family who tend to be worriers, but I am not. I try not to go into that. And so and she will, hey, grab a sweater. Don't forget this. Did you check that? I don't think that's going to work out. You better. And so we started right off the trip, and she was trying to tell me to do something because she was worried about something for me. And I said, thank you. I love you too. And she stopped and she looked at me and I said, well, I know that you tell me these things because you love me. And she was like, oh, well, yeah. So it kind of became our joke through this whole, we were on a cruise. So stuck in a cabin, right? We were on a cruise together. It became our joke. Thank you. I love you. But it was clear my mother only wanted to tell me what to do or offer me unsolicited advice, or it's going to be cold out there. Grab your hat, make sure you have your sweater, or, just things that parents often do. Because, anything could happen, but being able to set that boundary up front lightly with grace and ease, it made that entire trip so sacred to me, because I don't know how long I get my mom. I don't know how much longer I get to hang out with her. And it made that trip a beautiful experience, something sacred that we got to spend together. And she still giggles about it. Thank you. I love you.
So you can see that boundaries can look so many different ways. And Teresa and I have been practicing them for years, but there's still there are times that come up where we struggle a little bit, but you can see that the transition is a lot smoother. We can use comedy. We can really work it through because we know how. Whereas in the past, I probably would have shut down if somebody would have said, I don't agree with you. It's that it can make you have that fight, flight, freeze. And we learned how to process our emotions so that we don't have that response. So if we have any more questions, let us know now. We're going to end the webinar in just a moment, but we will be open for one more question if anybody has.
And I also just, I'm sorry, Sandy.
Yeah, go ahead. No, I just always like to have key takeaways. We've had a few people tell us takeaways, but when you type your takeaway, it actually helps you anchor it. And so if you can type some of the key takeaways in here,
what did
please
you learn
let us
today?
know. Yeah.
I like the idea of being a boundary ninja, right? You get to train in boundaries with a 4th degree black belt. Like, yeah. How often do you offer the courses? Let's see. When did we offer? Well, it's been 3 years.
It's been 3 years. We don't know when we're going to do it again. It could be years.
But check out the boundaryuniversity.com. I just wanted to thank each of you guys, because boundaries is a difficult conversation. We have to set boundaries when we're uncomfortable, awkward, and things are difficult. And so for each of you guys to come on a Sunday night or Monday afternoon, if you're in Australia, then being able to have that courage to really look at yourself. From the bottom of my heart, our hearts, I don't want to speak for your heart, but
my heart.
Thank you for the courage that it takes to look at this aspect of yourself, because it's so important. If you're ever around Sandy and I will always say boundaries are everything. Literally every conversation, every interaction, every difficulty is boundaries. Every challenge is boundaries. It's all about boundaries. And now that we have included you guys in the boundary conversation, now you're going to start to see them in more places and start to recognize your own triggers.
Yep. And Rudy says it helped to learn more about knowing my yeses before I say no. Scripts were key too. Thank you, Rudy. And Karen says, thank you for boundaries in your back pocket. You're welcome. Well, thank you all for joining us and for being willing to work on your boundaries. It takes courage to change behaviors, but it's really hard to stay stuck. It's hard to have people disrespect you, and we want you to have the best life you can have. So whether or not you join us in this course, we hope to see you there. But also check out Boundary University, because there are courses that you can take, single courses. I think they're $97 each. It's a lot more affordable. You won't get the live interaction with us. You won't get the comprehensive course where you're going to really go through a transformation, but they are highly valuable courses as well. So thank you. Thank you.
Practice your boundaries, everybody. Start practicing what you did. Practice those scripts. Pick a script and try it. Just pick one and try it.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.